All righty. Hello, Steeler Nation, and welcome to your SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker. With me is my co-host, Hunter Homistek, and we are just trying to figure out how we go from winning 11 in a row to losing 3 in a row. How are you doing, Hunter?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, much better than the Steelers are doing. I'm not quite as smiley, not quite as good of a mood this week, Stryker, like usual. You know, I'm usually having a really good time when we hop back on these, feeling good about the Steelers. The Bills game, you know, that one stung, but the Bills are a high quality team, and you could kind of see that one coming a bit. This last one, though, I'm not sure where to start, man. I'm really not sure where to start. Good.
I know at least where we should start. We should start right here by thanking our sponsors, Total Sports Enterprises, for giving away a free Color Rush Troy Polamalu jersey. Jump over there to @TotalSportsENT. Sign up. Just retweet it, like them, and you are entered to win a Troy Polamalu autographed jersey today. That's one's coming out today. So jump on there quickly. Sign up for your chance to win. And they're also doing these live box breaks as well. Check out their website at www.tseshop.com.
Nice. Those guys always do awesome giveaways, and what I think is hilarious about this one is that, like, usually after the game, the giveaway is somebody who had a good game. Yeah. This time they're just like Troy Polamalu. Like, we need to go with a classic. Nobody had a good game.
Yeah, let's go back with somebody that we know that everyone loves and isn't mad at this week.
Yeah, nobody can hate on that. So it was kind of funny, man. We were doing a similar giveaway on one of my clients, Hampton Beer Outlet, during the game, and it was for a Villanueva Salute to Service jersey.
Oh,
they're awesome jerseys, and we were going to announce the winner at halftime. We told everybody, and by halftime I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to want this jersey right now. Like, should we even announce the winner? Obviously we did and everything, and they were still stoked about it, but it was just one of those games where I was like, man, I don't know if anybody is even going to want a Villanueva jersey right now.
Yeah. And one other thing we should at least talk about, too, before we get into the game is, of course, the passing of Kevin Greene, Hall of Famer, outside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, starting Blitzburgh. Big with that, with he and Lloyd on each side coming in and leading the NFL in tackles and sacks the 3 years that he was here. So that was a big passing, a surprise passing, being so young, dying at the age of 58.
Yeah, 58's way too young, man. It is a shame. Like you said, that one came out of nowhere. Like, one of my friends tagged me on that on Twitter, and at first I was like, it can't be the same Kevin Greene, right? Like, I just thought, my first reaction was not even that it was that Kevin Greene, because I was like, no way. But
did they get Mean Joe Greene wrong or something? But it's Kevin Greene.
Didn't make sense, man. That's a shame. Like you said, his impact is undeniable. For me, he was one of the first football players that I ever remember watching, honestly. Like, I posted a picture on Twitter right after of my family for Super Bowl 30. They had me dressed up as Kevin Greene. Like, I had a long blonde wig and like a blonde goatee. They made me like I was Kevin Greene. So, and I was like 4 years old. So that was my first Steelers experience, you know. So those were the teams that got me into football, that formed my earliest memories. So of course that one hit close to home for me. But it's such a shame, man. But kind of in classic Pittsburgh fashion, the outpouring of love and support and people sharing good memories has really been amazing to witness. And, like, I've learned a lot about Kevin Greene over the past day just because of that. So the circumstances obviously suck, but it's always nice to see somebody's memory honored the right way. And in Pittsburgh, that's just how it's done.
And moving on to the game now, I mean, Connor was downgraded right there the day of the game, so that was a little bit of a surprise to Steeler Nation, though I was kind of expecting it. I at least anticipated he wasn't going to be there when I predicted the inactive list for this week, just because he was only limited for 2 practices, didn't practice the first time. But Benny Snell ended up having a good game in his stead. Kevin Rader was cut to make room for Scales and Isidora, who was Scales is a linebacker, backup linebacker, and Danny Isidora is that been a journeyman around the league playing offensive line. But, you know, moving into the game itself, you know, it looked like one of our better running games, to tell you the truth, the way that the offensive line was blocking.
Absolutely. I think that was the first time in a long time that you saw a semblance of an actual running game. And by that, I don't mean just one good rush here and there, but a few strung together, a few plays with real push, like you said, from the offensive line, which we haven't seen in a while. And on the flip side, we saw them struggle in third and short situations. They go for it on fourth down, and Benny gets it, but only by virtue of going up over the pile versus actually having a push. Like he really had nothing to work with there either. So
yeah, but he would have gotten that touchdown also doing the same way a couple games ago if Ebron nudges his guy on the edge because he was looking to jump over the pile, but his guy dove in and grabbed him at the foot when he was going to dive over the top.
Yeah. And just to be totally clear on that, Benny Snell, I feel like, had the one good game of anybody on offense. And maybe another guy had a decent game, and we'll get to that in a bit. But Benny Snell did definitely have a good game. And you know from talking to me for a long time, I've been a Benny Snell guy for a long time. The thing with Benny Snell is that he needs volume to succeed. You can't throw him in for 5 to 8 carries and be like, he sucks, he didn't do anything. But, like, it's not how his game works. And if you want a more dramatic example of a running back like that, you have to look at Derrick Henry. He's a guy where as the volume increases, he just gets better and better. And I'm not saying Benny Snell is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is super special. We all know that.
Yeah.
But Benny Snell operates very similarly where as his volume increases, so does his production and the efficiency of that production. So he's an interesting case, and I think you even saw that in the game. Like, he got better as the game went and broke off a couple long runs towards the end. So, I mean, he's fine, and I think he's always been fine. He's always been an answer if James Conner isn't moving forward. And I personally, I know everybody's like, the Steelers got to take a running back really early in the draft, yada, yada. I don't think they do. I would be totally fine with Benny Snell being the number one guy if James Conner isn't.
Yeah. And when it comes down to statistics for this game, they came in on the negative side. Pitt is the first team in NFL history to lose multiple games in a single season when they started with 11 wins to opponents with 4 or less wins. So they lost multiple times, being to the Washington Football Club and the Cincinnati Bengals, which made us look like the Bungles yesterday. The Steelers are also the third team in NFL history to lose 3 straight games after starting 11-0. One of them being the Super Bowl champion 2009 Saints. But I looked at their record. They started off 13-0, rested starters for the last 3 weeks, and lost those games before going to a Super Bowl.
That is the difference.
Yeah, it doesn't say it can't happen. It's just what happened. And then at halftime, Bengals led 17-0. That was tied for their largest lead versus Pittsburgh in the last 20 seasons.
Yeah.
And with Pittsburgh being shut out 17-0 at the end of a half, that was the first time it has happened since week 6 of 1980 when Chuck Noll was our head coach and Terry Bradshaw was our quarterback.
Feels good. Setting all kinds of records, this Steelers team this year, man. Just racking them up.
Well, Ben at least had some positive. That's why I wanted him to have a good game, because this was the game where he broke 5,000 attempts, tying Tom Brady for the third fastest quarterback ever to hit 5,000 attempts, and 60,000 pass yards, which is 7th all time. And then they even showed last day with the graphics last night, there's only 3 quarterbacks with 60,000 yards and multiple Super Bowl wins. And that being, of course, Brady and Manning and Roethlisberger. That's it.
Unreal. It's unreal. I mean, it's good company. It sucks that it took till the fourth quarter for him to get that.
Yeah,
I'm sure the graphics team, everybody at ESPN probably thought they were going to, get that fact out there a little sooner than they did, but it did eventually happen, and that's cool and all. But I can't imagine many Steelers fans are feeling too good about Ben's history right now. I'm sure that's all well and good, but we need to figure out what's wrong with him right now, presently.
Yeah, because for me, I mean, his stats were, he didn't have a great game, 20 for 38, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but it looked to me like he could have like 4 or 5 interceptions. It seemed like every drive he was putting the ball in the hands of the other team, and most of the time they just couldn't hang on to the ball. So that to me was the scariest aspect. Like, we looked like the Cincinnati Bengals on offense. We couldn't move the football. We're bungling center quarterback exchanges when David DeCastro knocks the ball away from Pouncey. Our 2 Pro Bowlers, guys, David DeCastro and Marquise Pouncey, coming across on that fumble. But we'll talk about the Pro Bowl. I guess do you want to talk about the Pro Bowl now? Let's talk about the Pro Bowl. We have 5 Pro Bowlers. Let's talk about something positive for a second.
Is it even positive? This isn't even a positive discussion. I mean,
the positives to me are the defensive players that made it. Obviously, Hayward and Watt deserve it. Watt, I think, is Defensive Player of the Year. And Minkah Fitzpatrick again. So 3 guys making it, but then, of course, our 2 offensive players being Pouncey and David DeCastro, who at this point, we just talked about this last week, I think, on the show.
Yeah.
And we're like, if they make it to the Pro Bowl, they're going to make it because of their name.
Mm-hmm.
And they did.
And that's why they made it.
As a Steeler fan, this is DeCastro's worst season as a Steeler.
For sure.
Pouncey's not. I've seen Pouncey have, I thought he was a little worse last year than this year, but he's not playing at a Pro Bowl level. I don't think anybody on the offensive line is playing at a Pro Bowl level. And offensively, like Ben had a chance of making the Pro Bowl, but after he's been banged up since that Dallas game, he hasn't been the same quarterback.
Nope, 0% chance he's making it. It's crazy to me that none of the receivers made it. All that talent, none of them could break out and stand out and just make it.
Well, statistically, they just don't have the numbers. I mean,
right.
you've got some of these receivers that are one receiver teams that are just throwing up monster numbers. And, Steelers are going to have a tough time competing with them with those types of numbers just because they're an ensemble cast this year. Even though they're highly talented, I think we start losing some players here. Maybe in free agency, if Juju's not on the team anymore, you might see like Deontay Johnson's numbers spike next year.
Right.
Claypool's numbers spike next year, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
But there's more room for things to move around. I thought Ebron even had an outside chance if he wasn't dropping so many balls. He could have been in a conversation for being a receiving tight end.
Sure. And to be clear, I don't think any Steelers receiver deserved to make the Pro Bowl. I was simply saying the talent is there for one of them to be a Pro Bowl level receiver. It's a shame that it hasn't materialized that way. Yeah, Pro Bowl, I mean, it is what it is. Like we said, it's a popularity contest. Everybody knows this. Even Villanueva, when he made it last year, he wasn't stoked about it. He was like, it really doesn't mean anything to me. Like, I understand this is fan voted. It's not really anything we get excited about. So, yeah.
And do you feel that there were any snubs on defense? I know for me, like Bud Dupree was on a Pro Bowl level when he got hurt. Obviously, he probably – that's the reason why he isn't taken. Anybody else on a snub on defense, in your opinion?
Dupree would have been the one for sure. I mean, he's the only guy that I could consider a snub. And obviously, him going down when he didn't help his case at all. If he had continued playing, I think no doubt he makes it. He's the only one I consider a snub. There are other guys who there are other guys who, if they made it, I would have understood. Joe Hayden having another decent year. Yeah. Steven Nelson got beat up by Stephon Diggs a little bit, but other than that, I feel like he's been very, very good again. Underrated.
Yeah. And Stephon Tuitt as well. I think he's been having a fantastic year, and he's been healthy for the most part.
Rough game last night for him against the Bengals, I thought. He was here and there, but he also got blown up more than I've seen him get blown up in the past, which made me wonder if he's fully healthy or if there's any lingering effects of COVID there, because it was all towards the end of the game too. So it was like I was wondering if the endurance was there or what. But, Tuitt's phenomenal. We all know that. You could make a case for that whole defensive line, man, if you wanted to.
I mean, if you had everybody, like, especially when you had, Vance McDonald was leading the league in TFLs. Now Watt's leading the league in TFLs. So, you mean.
Yeah. Unreal.
Sorry, not Vance. Vince Williams.
You confused me on that one, man. Not going to lie. I was like, wait, what?
No, Vince instead of Vance.
Yeah.
My Steeler mind works too fast at times.
Nice.
But, just touching back too, though, at least with the running game, I saw some signs of improvement. It was Benny Snell had 18 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown, 4.7 average, which is the largest average we've seen in a while for our running backs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like we said, Benny was one of the few bright spots on offense. And like I said, I feel like there are exactly 2 bright spots on offense, and he is one of them. So no complaints about him. The 4.7 yards per carry is very respectable. The volume was there, so the production was there. He scored. He caught a couple passes even, which was the huge thing coming into this year that everybody thought he needed to work on. He was good in pass protection from what I noticed as well. I mean, dude, that was a complete game for him, and that's what they needed to see. He's never going to be a burner. He still obviously doesn't look like the fastest guy on the field at all because he's not, but that's not his game, and it can work. I love seeing him run over Von Bell. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you think Benny Snell should be doing. So even though he lost some weight, slimmed down for year 2, he hasn't sacrificed that power, which has kind of always been his calling card. So that's good to see. It's good to see him kind of coming into his own. I genuinely think he's a guy who's only going to get better with reps and with experience. So I'm interested. I want to see what he's got left. And Mike Tomlin in his press conference today definitely left the door open that even if James Conner does return as expected, this upcoming game against the Colts, it sounds like Benny Snell is still going to get a pretty significant workload. You know, Tomlin couldn't say enough good things about Benny Snell, first of all.
He seemed to be the only bright spot that Tomlin talked about today on the
right.
Yeah.
Right. So Tomlin clearly loves what he's seeing from Benny Snell, and he was very clear. And it surprised me that he was so clear about saying Benny Snell will likely still receive work, because it's not usually how Tomlin talks. He doesn't usually tip his hand like that. He is always quick to say, you know, Connor's our guy.
Yeah.
He really didn't say that this time. It was like, even if Connor's back, Benny might still be our guy. So that's telling to me.
And we have to talk at least about one receiver. I know a lot of Steeler Nation is thinking about this. We've noticed this. We've seen Juju Smith-Schuster's social media. It was blowing up all over before the game. Is he going to go out? And we even talked about this. I was like, last game, I'm like, I don't think he's going to go back out and dance on another logo. And bam, he's out there TikToking on the Cincinnati Bengal head there at midfield, or the Bengal B right there. And then flash forward into the game, he takes a shot coming across that B and loses a fumble on a pivotal turn in that game.
Listen, I said it last week, and you did your good Simpsons old man voice, which I was very impressed with. I didn't like Juju doing it last week. I certainly didn't like Juju doing it this week, and I'm not going to lie, it was pretty satisfying to watch him get smashed by the guy who called it out, Von Bell, the guy who specifically had a problem with it, smashing him right near the logo and forcing a fumble. Hey man, if you need a slice of humble pie, that's about as freshly served as it gets right there. Hey, as much Steelers fans love Juju wiping out Vontaze Burfict, right, with the crackback block. This is the exact same thing, but in reverse. And you got to respect it. You got to love it. So for Bengals fans, man, I can't even imagine how good that felt. That, I hope, is what Juju needed to kind of cut this out. I said it last week, and I'm sticking to that. It's not me trying to hamper the dude's brand or hamper who he is as a person. I like Juju as a person. As I said, I love his brand. I love the YouTube stuff. I love these football.
He does good things for the community too.
He's an amazing guy in the community, and I love these guys who understand that there is life after football. And for Juju to figure that out, even as a rookie, you know, start building that brand, like Juju's going to succeed no matter what he does now in life, because he is who he is. And that's so smart, so good. Literally can't say enough good things about this. The whole logo dancing is literally a matter of respect and integrity for the sport. That's it. It's respect and focus. And it's not there. That's not what you do. That's not how you treat the game. I've seen other professionals across other sports, you know, some hockey players saying, oh my God, I can't even imagine if somebody would do this in our arena. Like,
they get crushed.
There are physical consequences for acting like an ass. And that's what Juju's doing here. And I understand why he's doing it again. I get it, but I don't agree with it. And I want it to stop. Mike Tomlin said as much. He's going to have a talk with Juju apparently. So we'll see if that puts an end to it or what. But I'm personally shocked that no player, that maybe Cam Hayward, some leader type in the locker room, hasn't put an end to that already. It's just goofy.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, the only time that we as fans have something to even like equate this to was back when, you know, Terrell Owens was going and trying to dance on the Cowboys star at center at the middle of the field after a touchdown, and he sprinted out to the middle of the field to go and celebrate on that star, and he got blindsided by somebody came off the sideline and just wrecked him. Yeah, and here's like, you're not going to disrespect our star, our logo, our symbol of our team in our arena, and that's essentially what's happened. I mean, I know he's having fun on the logo. Right. He's like not trying to. You know, but it's gotten to that point where even if his intentions aren't trying to disrespect the logo, and he just wants to dance on every logo to show that, you know, I've played every team and I enjoy this aspect of my pregame ritual. Now he's got to realize that yes, it is a form of disrespect. The other team is taking it seriously, and we have an instance now where it fired up a guy enough to hit the guy a little bit extra harder. Could have been ruled as a helmet to helmet contact hit too, which wasn't.
Sure.
But you know, that's just what occurred during that game.
They asked Von Bell what he saw on that play as far as a read, like what read did you make on the play? Because obviously he broke on it so fast. What he said he saw was 19. All I saw was 19. So if you think that it wasn't in his head, smash Juju Smith-Schuster,
Yeah.
it absolutely was.
Yes.
So, and I get what what a lot of people are saying, oh, these are professional athletes. They don't need extra motivation. They definitely don't need extra motivation to go out and play hard and win.
Yeah.
But if you make something personal, they will not forget that. And given the opportunity, they will capitalize on it. So this is now 2 weeks in a row. Well, I know he's been doing it longer than 2 weeks, but this is 2 weeks in a row where there's concrete, indisputable evidence that the teams took it personally and used that as fire. That's enough. Two terrible performance. And it's not the funny thing about mentioning T.O. is like twofold to me is that one, everybody thought he was a diva and disliked him. Like nobody liked that he did that or agreed. Like it was a terrible idea by him. And two, he at least did it after he scored a touchdown. Yeah. Juju's doing it before the game and then getting 15 yards in the game. So that's a bad look. That's a bad look.
So the numbers, at least across the board for third down efficiency, we're just getting worse and worse. It seems like in third down when we were so good at the beginning in the first 11 games, and now the Steelers going 4 for 16 on third downs, but converting one of the two fourth downs, and Bengals being 4 for 14. So they're right there. To me, the big difference of the game ended up being turnovers. That 3-0 turnover ratio just absolutely crippled the Steelers, especially with the first turnover occurring back at like the 20-yard line. I mean, that's just like, here you go, you're already in the red zone.
I don't understand. That's what probably the most baffling stat of that game is. You would think they would have forced at least one and more likely multiple turnovers in that game to not be able to. For a team that has kind of relied on that for so long, when it disappears, I mean, you see the consequence. I feel like the defense still played a very good game. They lost Ryan Finley towards the end and a lot of those read options and the QB draws, and that's inexcusable. But for the most part, I thought the defense was okay, or at least
I did too.
It's not the short fields that you just mentioned. That's impossible for a defense to deal with, no matter how good the defense is. It's flat out difficult to defend that short of a field and hold them to 0 points whenever they start in the red zone. But B, it just tires them out. They don't get the break that they're supposed to. It's what we saw all last season and talked about all last season, man. It literally feels like the 2019 Steelers have returned.
Yeah, in a way. In a way, with the offensive production, I'd say it's spot on. And Steelers, just over the last 4 games, Hunter, Steelers are 17 for 55. That's 30.9% on third down.
Not good. That's not good, guys. Not good at all.
But moving to the defensive side, we had T.J. Watt continue his sack streak for this week. Of course, he and I think Tuitt ended up getting credited with the other sack. 3 TFLs for TJ. I mean, he's still an absolute monster coming at this, playing defense, at least trying to create an impact for our team. And his numbers are even continuing to go on top of that. He's now the first Steelers player with 13-plus sacks in 3 straight seasons since '82 when they started tracking sacks. He now has 47.5 sacks since entering the NFL, which is the most among linebackers in that span. And 22 TFLs that he had now for Monday night is the most by any defender since Aaron Donald had 25 in 2018. And there's still 2 games to play. So he's getting into like elite levels because he's now there with Aaron Donald, who did it twice with over 22 TFLs in a season, Chandler Jones, Khalil Mack, and JJ's brother. So, I mean,
pretty good players there.
Yeah.
I think at this point, man, I think it's honestly safe to, you said he's getting to elite levels. I think we can kind of throw out that phrase and just say he's at an elite level. He's established that. There's no getting there anymore for him, in my opinion. He's there. It's crazy to watch him play, man. And I didn't hear him talk about this or know if he was even available, if he had a comment after the game. But when Derek Watt got knocked out on that first punt with the block in the back, I mean, just out cold, terrible. Yeah. The kind of stuff you hate to see. I can't imagine how that affected TJ's game, and I would have loved to hear him talk about that. Difficult as that would have been for him to talk about, like the strain of watching your brother. That it just had to, as a human being, it had to be in the back of his mind, like, how's Derek doing? And I'm sure he was getting updates on the sideline when they would go to the sidelines and everything. But when you see a guy get knocked out like that and clearly concussed like that, man, that's the kind of stuff that, as physical of a game as football is, that's the kind of stuff that you hope you never have to see. And honestly, he's lucky that it wasn't even worse. We don't necessarily know the extent of it, but just seeing him get up and walk out on his own was great, you know. So,
well, for me too, if I was thinking of it like my little brother, and in that situation, if I saw that happen, the first thing that's going into my mind is, he just had another child. Like that's his baby's at home. It's like I gotta make sure he's fine. And like I want to run right over to him. I'm surprised like TJ didn't immediately run over to Derek to. I don't know if he was just getting ready for defense or they didn't know what was going on at the time, but it was just like that was just such a crazy thing to happen that first it has to go to family immediately when you've got a brother on the team, just had a new baby, holidays coming up. I mean, your thoughts have to come out of football, but he was still able to refocus and still have a really good game.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously I don't want you to rewatch it, but if you do, TJ does run out actually and clear people. Yeah. He does clear people away from he gets other Steelers like back up, give him space. Like he comes sprinting off the sideline to clear space and make sure Derek's okay. So it's one of those things, man. That's hard to watch.
That's him as a brother runing on the field as opposed to him
exactly.
as a Pittsburgh Steeler running on the field.
Oh yeah, there was no thought about the game at that point for him. That was literally him checking on his brother. It was a pretty powerful moment, man.
Oh, cool. I will rewatch it. I saw it once because usually I do my rewatches before the podcast, but we're on a short timing for this one.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, maybe just don't watch it. Take my word for it.
I've got you. I'm a glutton for punishment.
There you go.
So now the Steelers have a super interesting stat that I've got to, give Alex Kozora a little bit of props for finding this one. And it is, there has been 9 times since 2013 the Steelers have held their opponent under 90 yards passing. They now have a losing record in those games. They are 4-5 in those 9 games where they held their opponent to under 90 yards passing.
It is one of the most bizarre stats ever.
It is. And I that's why I got to give Alex credit on that one, because it is such an incredibly bizarre stat that had to be shared with Steeler Nation here. And the Steelers also scored over 26 points in their first 10 games, now been held under 20 for their last 4. So these are just some really just mind-boggling trends that are going on now. And I was hoping too that the defense would be able to pick up the scoring, being a great scoring defense and at least holding these teams down. But Steelers, all they have to do is score 24 points. They're winning games.
Yeah.
I mean, they're at least right in these games. If they're right at their average scoring 26, 28, they're winning them.
That's the most frustrating part, man. It's like the inverse of those, 2015, 16, 17 teams that were offensive juggernauts with the killer bees but didn't have a defense. Now the script is just flipping. The defense is plenty dominant enough to where you want to be a Super Bowl winning team, but the offense isn't holding up its end of the bargain. And like it was earlier this season, to be clear, when things were fine, earlier they legitimately looked like a Super Bowl team. And I think that's what's so confusing to me and to a lot of Steelers fans at this point is that nothing dramatic has, Ben's not out. These key players, there's just not multiple injuries on offense. Nothing should have changed this dramatically. I understand little things here and there can maybe dip off and change, but to completely fall off a cliff like this is unprecedented in my time watching the Steelers. Like, I've never seen a team look good. At times they looked average. You look at the Cowboys game, that wasn't their best performance. They had other performances in between. The first half against the Texans was very rough. Yeah. There were times where you were like, it's not all there. But then other times where it was like the first half of the Titans, the entire Browns game, like who was going to stop these guys ever? Like, it was just a well-oiled machine. So I don't understand how they go from showing those glimpses to having like literally 0 glimpses of anything. It's just a total implosion. And it definitely starts with Ben. Last night against the Bengals, as much as we could say in past episodes on this show after a game, Randy Fichtner's play calls were problematic, same plays over and over, predictable. Early on, I felt like he was calling great plays. I actually loved the game script. Yeah. And Ben was just missing like
wide open guys. Yeah.
Every throw.
Nothing was within catchable range there for a couple of these early passes.
Yeah.
He seemed to, settle it down there in the second half and had some really good throws in the second half. But
absolutely,
that first half just put him behind the 8 ball. And I parroted your Twitter because I saw you you at least get venting on Twitter last night, and I was saying the same thing. It's like it's time to bring in another quarterback, and that's the way I felt in the first half. And it's insane to say when you have Ben Roethlisberger as your quarterback, but he even admitted that he's not 100%. So now we're at the point where like a not 100% Ben Roethlisberger doesn't help us win games.
No, I mean, clearly doesn't. The proof is right there in the last 4 games, like you said. Even the game they won, they don't win if that Ravens team is healthy and wasn't decimated by COVID. So that wasn't the performance that you're looking for either. So, It's terrible, man. And yeah, I definitely wanted to see Mason. If you want to say, Mike Tomlin is a leader, if you want to bench Deontay Johnson because he can't catch a football, totally fair. I have zero problems with that.
Yeah.
Then you also need to be willing to bench Ben if he can't throw a football. And
Yeah.
he wasn't able to throw a football in the first. I don't know how else to put it. Dude was missing passes and again, from talking to me enough, I'm not a Mason Rudolph guy. I don't think Mason Rudolph is the answer at all. If I'm calling for Mason Rudolph, something has gone terribly wrong.
Well, if the Steelers offense needs a Christmas miracle, who better to lead our sleigh than Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer?
It's his destiny.
Really strong touchdown arm.
No, God.
And the Yinzer saw it.
Nice. That is his destiny. Rudolph was made.
I know Myron Cope would have done a song like that, man.
Absolutely.
He's my guy. So, going into the game then, who gets your game ball on offense?
We hinted at it plenty. It's got to be Benny Snell as being one of the only positive contributors on offense. So I'll leave you the other guy that I think we could make a case for.
I'm going wild card on this one.
Whoa.
I'm going with our punter. I'm going with
What? Okay. I like it.
52.2 yards per punt, 6 punts. He did the best that he could to try to flip fields and put us in positions to win these games. More so than I thought our offense did at times.
That's fair.
He was at least helping out our defense as much as he could. And for him, that was his second highest punting average for a game over 5 kicks.
Okay.
So,
I like it, man. I don't hate that pick at all. So I'll just say the other guy that I thought you were going to take for sure, just for our listeners, was going to be Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
Honorable
mention to him too.
For sure. As much as we talk about his struggles and his drops, man, he was making clean catches, looked like the old Deontay. It seems like whatever mental hurdles he needed to clear up potentially are cleared up. So if you want to take one small positive away from that game, you can rest on that one.
So the good thing was the Steelers really didn't have any drops last game. The problem was Ben couldn't get the ball to them. So, because I remember that first one across the middle when DJ stuck up his hand behind him to try to get to the ball and just touched part of his hand. And then the announcers are like, hey guys, calm down now. That's not a drop. And and they even know. I mean, the announcers even knew that, Deontay Johnson has a problem with drops. It's going to come up. It's going to be an issue.
I think of the meme of the dude tapping his head can't outthink it's like they can't Ben Roethlisberger's like that right now, they can't drop the ball if I don't put it near him.
Good call. And I at least have to make note, this is something that I really loved because I'm a huge fan of this and I grew up with them. The Muppet Football Night last night, I at least just to touch base on that, I was at least entertained tremendously by that. I'm glad that they had it on there for something to entertain Steeler fans other than the actual football game. But I don't know your feelings on that. Steeler Nation, if you guys want to chime in, what were your feelings on that and seeing the Muppets there during the game?
As much as I do look like Beaker, I'm not a huge – I guess if I frown. But as much as I do look like Beaker – it is the red hair. I'm not a huge Muppet guy, but I will say that was appropriately goofy for how terrible that game was. It was it was the perfect backdrop for that game, no doubt. This is the bizarre chaos that we deserve.
Yeah. Is that episode of the Muppets we're out there looking like Muppets on the field, throwing the ball on the ground, throwing interceptions. So it's just kind of a zany, wacky game for Steelers.
It was terrible. It was just terrible, man.
So let's at least get out of this game. Unfortunately, we did have the 2 injuries. We talked about Derek Watt's concussion. He's in concussion protocol. We have to wait for him to practice. Obviously, it takes 2 clean, full practices to clear protocol. So he'll be on that. And Eric Ebron also went off the field with that back injury. Looked like he got hit early.
Yeah,
there's a couple times in the game I thought we got hit early. I thought Claypool got hit early on that 3rd and 10 there at the end of the game, significantly early, and his arm hooked, so he couldn't even go up for the ball. But Eric Ebron, too, we'll just have to figure out about his back. Obviously, Connor getting downgraded with his quad. We'll have to watch him this week. Kevin Dotson being the only other one missing with an injury with his shoulder. Hopefully, he can practice this week because I'd rather have him than Hausner in that left guard spot.
Absolutely.
And then the only other person is Vince Williams. He was able to return as early as Saturday from COVID, from the COVID list being 10 days. Obviously, he's still symptomatic or positive, so he has to clear that. And I'm optimistic that he will clear it this week in time for the Indianapolis game.
Yep. All never good to hear injuries, but overall, nothing too crazy. It does sound like Dotson will be coming back this week, or at least beginning to work his way back. There's a chance that he'll play this week, according to Tomlin today. So that's always good to hear. That's always awesome. That was kind of the big one to me that I feel like they need to get back. I had a mini heart attack when Marcus Allen went down during the game, apparently that was just a stinger or something. He seems totally fine now. He returned even in that game to finish the game, so he's okay, thankfully. But watching the inside linebackers just drop like flies is getting a little old.
I know. We can't take many more injuries there, honestly.
No doubt.
Honestly. So now we have the matchup this weekend, 1 o'clock, finally a 1 o'clock Sunday game, hopefully back to normality and the way that the Steelers play. 1 o'clock on Sundays. It's been great this season. Hopefully they continue. But the interesting storyline for me, Hunter, is that Ben is going back up against the best statistical quarterback of his draft in Rivers.
That's funny. I mean, they all flip-flopped for a long time. All throughout their careers, I feel like Eli, Rivers, and Ben were just constantly passing and, leaping each other in various categories. So it's always cool when they get to play each other. And last week, I didn't know who was going to be the Bengals quarterback. I said Ryan Finley, and it turned out I was right, but it was supposed to be Brandon Allen. So that was just me looking at my crystal ball. This week, though, Stryker, I'm pretty sure it's Rivers.
Yes.
I can feel pretty confident about the Colts quarterback being Phillip Rivers in this game. And dude, the bad news for the Steelers is that this Colts team is very well rounded, and I mean that on offense and defense, passing and running. They don't have any just gaping hole. And that alarms me a little bit because this is a very solid team for a Steelers team that needs to get back on track. These Colts are definitely no pushover anywhere. Their offensive line's elite. They have a really good – Jonathan Taylor as a rookie running back has been very good. And I like Hines behind him as well as a change of pace kind of third down back. He's very good in that role. The receivers, you've always got T.Y. Hilton. We know what he does. But Michael Pittman Jr. looks very good as a rookie. Zach Pascal looks good. He's coming around. So – it's not going to be an easy game. We know how Rivers is, and thankfully the Steelers tend to do pretty well against Rivers. I feel like beat him last year in Los Angeles, so that was good. Colts are not bad, man. I like the Colts. I like what they have as a team, but perhaps worse of all for the Steelers is that the Colts are battling for the division. They're tied with the Titans at 10-4. Yeah. They have everything to play for right now. They're
playing well right now.
And they're playing well right now. So you've got a team that's hungry, that's trying to win the division, that is finding some positive momentum. If the Steelers couldn't beat the Bengals, if that same Steelers team shows up against the Colts, it's going to be an absolute blowout. So it's time to figure stuff out this week, or else it's going to just get uglier.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And just looking at the stats here quick with Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers has 63,000 yards currently and 5,200 passing yards. Also up on Ben with 419 touchdowns to 207 interceptions, whereas Ben has 393 touchdowns to 201 interceptions. So that's why I said the best statistical quarterback, because like I said, he's good between the seasons, but in the postseason, he ends up having a much tougher time winning, whereas Ben tends to get his team to Super Bowls.
That's a really interesting case study kind of deal to me of the power and influence of statistics and why you can't just look at statistics, because Rivers is the best statistically, like you said, if you're just looking at a piece of paper. But I feel like if anybody ranked Ben, Eli, and Rivers would be third easily for pretty much anybody ranking those three quarterbacks.
And that's
to me, it's a no-brainer.
You even have to talk about it for Hall of Fame. I think you put in Eli and Ben before you'd put in Rivers.
Absolutely.
And that has a lot to do with just specifically not only success in getting to the Super Bowl, but just the luster of winning Super Bowls puts you in a higher caliber in the minds of not just your own fan base, but all of the fan base, because then everyone knows who you are. Ben has two Super Bowl wins with 3 appearances. Eli's got 2 huge Super Bowl wins against a juggernaut Patriots team both times. And that just creates the mystique of your career to put that cherry on top to get you into the Hall of Fame. Whereas, Rivers has had nothing but but terrible performances. I mean,
Yeah.
because his teams were stacked.
They had great teams.
When they got
No
rid
doubt.
of Breeze, and Breeze went to New Orleans, and he was in charge of that ship. That was the most talented roster in the NFL. And I believe they missed the playoffs one year because they had the number one offense, they had the number one defense in the league. Missed the playoffs completely.
That's incredible.
Because they had the worst turnover ratio in football.
That'll do it.
Last in turnover ratio, and that's what team turnovers do to you. They happened that last game. It makes a worse team, a team that can only get 89 yards passing. I think 73 when you figure in the sacks, but that's how they win games. It's turnovers.
At a minimum, I feel pretty confident saying Phillip Rivers is better than Ryan Finley, and the Colts' weapons are also better. The Bengals have some weapons on offense. Their O-line is terrible. That's what holds them back.
Yeah.
But the Colts O-line is not terrible. You know, Quentin Nelson, obviously one of the best in the league. So it's going to be a tough game, guys. Like, this is not a layup. It's not one that right now I can even favor the Steelers in. I feel like almost every week this week I'm like, yeah, Steelers are going to win. I genuinely don't think they're going to win this one. I mean, they got to prove me wrong, dude. At this point, think of it this way. I just thought of this today, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit. 4 straight games playing like absolute trash, in my opinion. Just terrible play. Last 4 games. That's a quarter of a season.
Yeah.
4 out of they've been playing. It's not like a flash in the pan anymore.
No.
Like it's a trend that you can say is legit. So until they prove me wrong and get back to playing well, I can't pick them. Can't do it.
I'll tell you one thing. Vegas can't pick them either, man.
No,
Vegas doesn't even know how to. What do they have? Steelers at like plus 14 or minus 14 this last game against the Bengals. Is it minus 12.5 or 12? I know it was fluctuating between there depending on where you went, but these guys, it's their job to make sure they keep this point spread as close as possible to make money on just breaking even for the most part on on just doing the transactions. But my gosh, that was a spread where I was just like, I don't even think the Steelers are going to cover that.
Yeah,
and
unreal.
Of course, unfortunately, they were on the opposite side of that. They ended up losing by 10 as opposed to supposed to be winning by 12.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're not the only one there. It's the entire Las Vegas is there, and they're probably going to be flipping this thing in a major way toward Indianapolis, I assume, this week to try to gain some of that Steeler opponent money back.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
But they probably made a lot of money on Steeler fans this past week. I'll tell you that. So going off into the last thing that I can really even think about for the game then is, to me, the only thing if the Steelers aren't going to, they're going to make the playoffs no matter what, but if they aren't going to advance in the playoffs, I just want to see TJ Watt do as well as he can just to show that he's an impactful player every game he plays in, even without Bud Dupree, and really try to get this defensive player of the year locked down for him. I mean, I think he needs one more big play. If he can turn a turnover into an interception or a touchdown, then that might put the cherry on the top and lock him into it. But right now I know the player in the Dolphins secondary guy that's making all the interceptions, got like 9 interceptions or something.
They're Howard.
Yeah. I think he has a turnover in the last 6 games they announced yesterday, because I was watching that game.
That's absurd.
On Sunday.
For a corner.
It is. So that seems to me like to be who the league seems to love right now, because he's hottest at the end of the season. But my point with TJ Watt is he's made an impactful play in every single game.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure there's games where you get those secondary guys where they don't make an impactful play, where they have one PD. And, he's getting 2-3 TFLs when he's having a bad game. He's getting 3 PDs that one game when he couldn't get to the quarterback. He knocked down 3 passes.
True.
So he finds different ways to make himself impactful in games, even if he's not getting to the quarterback. He's still getting those tackles for losses in the backfield, breaking those tackles and getting those running backs down on the ground.
You make a great point there, and I think that's kind of it. We saw TJ lose the award last year to Stephon Gilmore, another impactful corner that got a lot of picks and made a lot of plays. They love that.
They love flash.
It's super hard to do. And to be fair to a corner, they can influence a game by simply not being targeted. And then there's nothing they can do. TJ, you can't avoid TJ Watt. He's going to be stuffing, like you said, he's going to be getting TFLs. He's going to be getting sacks. He's going to be doing something. You can't just avoid him the way that you can avoid a shutdown corner. So I kind of understand it. And I think what he needs, which is exactly what you said, is just more splash. Last year when he was getting strip sacks, forcing a lot of fumbles, he needs to get back to that. It's been a while since we've really seen that side of him. We've still seen him be absolutely disruptive and amazing and everything we know TJ Watt can be, but it's time for the turnovers to come back, I think.
And I'm surprised they're not moving him around more. With Bud Dupree going out, I thought they would have swapped sides at times with Highsmith and Watt, just to have him come from the blind side, just to create mismatches, to see how it works within the game. I mean, Butler's obviously, feels like he's doing fine. He's impactful enough there, but that just creates another problem for other opposing offenses to have to deal with. If Watt's not where he's supposed to be, and you already had like the chip play going with your tight end on that side, and he lines up weak side where the tight end isn't there, and now you have him chip block and Highsmith, and he's coming in on a one-on-one on a right tackle, then their left tackle, then it creates different little nuances to the game, and that's what I want to see. That's to me, that's how you play the chess aspect of the game.
I like it. And while you mentioned Highsmith, man, I just want to do a little quick shout out to him in that I felt he looked very good early. Very good. Super fast off the ball. Crazy first step, which is what we heard about from him all along. So I saw some good things from him. I saw him miss some assignments as well, which Tomlin addressed in his, post-game wrap-up or interview press conference today. So that's a rookie for you. But Tomlin is very impressed with his development early on. And I think, honestly, it's kind of safe for me to say that Highsmith looks better as a rookie than Bud Dupree did to me. I've seen enough impact and potential and flash already that I feel like he's farther along than Bud was earlier. So that gives me a lot of hope moving forward that maybe he could be a guy that they could really lean on, the next impactful edge rusher from the Steelers.
And now we're at the time of our podcast where we take questions from Steeler Nation.
The best.
We take most of our questions here from SteelerNation.com forum. Excellent place. It's free. Go on, log on there, create a free account, and you get to ask the first questions of the podcast. Twitter, if you got any questions, go ahead and put them up. We're going to be talking about them too. Facebook, is there anything pertinent we need to jump to right now, or you want me to go into the Steeler Nation?
We got some. Let the forum kick it off, but yeah, we got some on Facebook.
Great. Hoot starts us off. He says, thanks for all the cast this year, guys. It's been fun. Have a safe and joyous holiday season. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Hoot.
What is Hunter and Cope's favorite holiday tradition? I go by Cope online, Striker, obviously. So what's your favorite holiday tradition, Hunter?
Oh, man, I gotta stew on this one for a second, because obviously the huge thing with any holiday is simply seeing your family and hanging out. And unfortunately, it won't be happening this year. But usually my family has a huge Christmas Eve get-together where it's all extended family, aunts and uncles and everything. May or may not be a significant amount of alcohol consumed at this Homistek family. I'm not saying, I plead the fifth on that. But needless to say, that's always an amazing time. It always devolves into like a rap battle or board games or something just absurd and ridiculous. It's the best, man. It's just the feeling of being around your family and just enjoying that time together is really unlike anything else for me. I'm blessed to have an incredible family, an extended family. So anytime I can get together with them and just have a good time, that for me is the holiday tradition.
Nice. Yeah, we've got to do it differently this year. I've got a piecemeal family anyway. I come from a divorced family, so I'm having my mom's family over. Well, just my mom and her current husband and my brother and his wife over for New Year's Eve, and we're just doing this is the 7 of us here at the house on New Year's Eve, and then my dad and stepmom are coming down from upstate PA for a couple days after Christmas on Sunday to watch the game with us. So we're going to watch the Steeler game together on Sunday, so that'll be awesome. A lot of fun.
That's great.
That's why, and he's got to travel to all the relatives, so he wanted to plan to make sure he was at my house on Sunday night so we could drink and talk Steelers and cheer and yell at the screen and drink some beers.
There we go.
That's always a good tradition. But being a father too now, like I love watching my daughter open gifts, and that's at least something that's not taken from me this year. I'm gonna love that. I'm gonna love to see how the dog's gonna react to Christmas. It's gonna be dog's first Christmas. We have like a baby gate around the tree and the gifts, just to keep the dog away from the gifts right now. But as soon as it comes out, I know it's going to just be a madhouse. All the gifts come out, wrapping paper everywhere. Yeah. The dog's just not going to – I mean, it's an excitable dog as it is. Yeah. Excitable hunt. There's hunting – the bird dogs are an excitable breed, but she's going to absolutely be just beside herself watching Christmas happen this year.
That's awesome, man. I love it.
And then Hoot follows up. He asks, "Will we win another game this season?" So who is our draft pick?
Nice.
It's kind of, I'm always an optimist. I'll at least start up and saying, yes, I think the Steelers will win another game this year. I'm hoping it's in the playoffs, and I hope that and I'm even fine if they carry this losing streak into the playoffs, and then they tend to go, then they flip it and they go on a winning streak then to finish the playoffs. I am 100% fine with that. That would be my ideal way. What do you see, Hunter?
Dude, if they go 11-5 and win the Super Bowl, nobody is going to care about the 5-game losing streak to end the season. 0% chance anybody cares. I will agree with you to an extent and say if they win one playoff game, they're going to the Super Bowl because they're not winning one playing the way they're playing. So if they win one, that means they figured something out. They got back to their better ways. So if they win that one, I feel good about them literally just going all the way.
Nice.
But, dude, I don't think they're going to win one.
and for me, as far as a draft pick, I'm not studied up on my picks this year. I'm not going to state like who I think the number one pick is, but I think that it should go to an offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
I think Steelers need to rebuild this offensive line. I thought Dotson was an excellent pick in the 4th round. Drafting this late, you're probably going to have to look center or guard in the 1st round because all the number one tackles are going to be taken too early. I mean, if somebody slips, then great, you take the tackle, obviously, but probably going to be a guard or a center. And if there's a stud center that's there right around the 20s, unless we go to 32, then, we got to go guard if we're drafting 32.
Yeah, for sure, man. I agree with you completely. I think the pick should be offensive line. I know a lot of people are going to say running back, and I already said that earlier. I didn't think that was the pick last year. I don't think that's the pick this year. I don't like taking a running back that early. I love an offensive lineman as kind of a wild card pick, and I'm not a Penn State fan. I'm blanking on the dude's name, but their tight end is an absolute machine. And
Nice.
If he's there, I wouldn't mind seeing them pick up the Penn State tight end.
That would be a pick. I wouldn't be upset. That's a great call because, I think Vance is a free agent next year. He carries a big salary as well as Ebron, but Ebron signed for 2 years. So that might be Steelers have to pick up a playmaking tight end as well. That could be that's a really good call. That would be necessary. So /Steel then asks, what is your favorite Kevin Green memory? I know you shared that awesome memory of you as a child. I think that's an amazing memory. Do you have any other things around Kevin Green that you remember?
That's really the one, man. That's the one that stands out and was just awesome. For me, like I said, I was 4 years old at that time, so obviously the memories are a little different. I didn't get to see Kevin Green in his prime or anything like that. I will share that the great local photographer Ed Thompson posted a picture of Kevin Green as his wife was singing the national anthem at Heinz Field last year.
Yeah.
And Kevin Green, like just in his eyes, you could tell he was fighting tears so hard watching his wife sing the national. Just so proud. Like it was just a really cool series of photos of Kevin Green watching his wife sing the anthem. So that was really touching stuff to see, especially in a moment like that. So for me, I'll go with that. That's not my memory, obviously, but that's something that I've since seen of Kevin Green that really hit home with me.
That's great. And for me, I loved seeing he and Lloyd meet at the quarterback. I think they did it in the Indianapolis game in the playoffs where they just came and sandwiched when they sandwich a guy. That was my all-time favorite thing to say. But the other aspect of Kevin Green, which is strictly Pittsburgh and why he has so much love for us, is before he came to Pittsburgh, I mean, he was a crew cut guy. He had really tight haircut, and he got to Pittsburgh and he says he's not going to cut his hair until he makes it to a Super Bowl. Nice. And he stayed with the Steelers and got to that Super Bowl in the 95. I think he still kept his hair then after that because it just became such an iconic thing. And with his wrestling career as well. Yeah. So, WCW, I'm not sure, you being a mixed martial art guy, I mean, we only had boxing back then. We didn't have mixed martial arts. We had professional wrestling and it was, WWF at the time or NWA, I think, or no.
Yeah.
WCW, yes.
Yeah.
NWA is a rap group, and but those were like our things to watch that weren't boxing, which were guys fighting, and it was. But now it's like, of course, like MMA is like the thing for me, and it's not kind of like wrestling has lost its luster now because there is an actual way to watch people really go at it. that, and even if they hate each other, like, but that's the crazy thing is, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but since you're doing your MMA podcasts, and I just want to get your take on this, we don't have those rivalries in MMA like we do in boxing, setting up the rivalries. And of course, like, they're completely fabricated, but they're so fun in professional wrestling for WWE right now. But it seems like everybody is so respectful of each other's process and their games and their families in mixed martial arts and UFC specifically, that we don't really get those hated rivalries. But I'm sure there are a couple guys that really do hate each other. And whether or not they say it outwardly, I mean, do you know what's probably the most hated rivalry right now in UFC?
So it's kind of like a layered question because it's funny. Like you say, there is a lot of respect in MMA, which I think if people don't watch the sport, that may actually surprise them, I would say. Like, these guys are actually super respectful and they appreciate the martial arts side of it. But like, John Jones and Daniel Cormier was one of the best rivalries in MMA history, and those dudes hated each other and were not shy. They were not shy about the fact that they hated each other. And it is very much like the throwback kind of boxing rivalry where it was obvious, where you're watching the press conference and thinking, all right, who's going to just sucker punch who first in this press conference, because you guys genuinely hate each other. And the crazy thing about that rivalry was that after the fights were over, they weren't kissing and making up. Like, they weren't saying, hey, it's all good, we fought, it's in the past. They still don't like each other. Like, that was genuine dislike. And the other guy, obviously, that you can look at is Conor McGregor. Yeah. And anybody he fights, he turns it into a rivalry. And that is part height, part motivation for himself. Yeah. But if you're looking for that, like, bad blood feel, pretty much any fight he gets into, he turns it into that. So he has a fight against Dustin Poirier coming up and has actually been pretty respectful thus far. He already beat Dustin once, so that's the interesting aspect of this one. But they've been pretty respectful, surprisingly. So that's crazy to see. Conor maturing in his old age.
And Mad Insomniac asks, anyone know what our offense has done on the first two drives in games this year versus the rest of the league? I feel like the first quarter offense has been horrible, and are we bad at this? And
they are bad at it. I don't even know the stats, but I can answer that they are bad at it.
They are. They're actually getting depressingly bad at it. I'm gonna share an article right here on SteelerNation.com, written by, let's see who it's got the Parker Abate, and he did a fantastic job of just breaking down the stats of what's going on with this offense since 2018, 46 games. Just the first drive, the majority of those drives ended in punts, 59%, nearly 60%, nearly a D grade punts. Half of those punts were 3 and outs, half of them. So you're like at a 30% for 3 and outs. Eight turnovers, so that's 17% were turnovers. 13% were field goals with 6 field goals, and the smallest number, 10%, being 5 touchdowns. So yes, Steelers have not just been looking bad this year. It's been back since 2018. It has been depressingly bad. And it's why when we got out in the second half and we scored right away, I'm like, wow, this is a switch. It's like, I like seeing that opening drive go down and score a touchdown and get points on the board, because that really sets the tone. But the Steelers have been having to try to figure out a way to score and win football games without even setting the tone with these first couple drives.
It's funny you say since 2018, because you know who took over as offensive coordinator in 2018.
Yes, this article is heavily slanted toward Randy Fichtner.
Yeah, shocking, really.
Shockingly, yes. But that's the way it is. I mean, we got to take our lumps with it. He is kind of associated with that, and he even made a point Parker made a point within his article that he stated that Randy scripts his opening plays, and you've got to put that into context with how badly they're performing on these opening plays, because he's scripting them.
Right.
So, whereas it worked really well in that one game against the New England Patriots in 2018, and we did really well against Tennessee this year. I think we scored like the first 17 points in that game.
Scored twice on the first drive in that one. First one got called back.
Yes. So like those outside of those two aberrations, it's really a horrible showing. So
yeah, terrible.
So Matt Insomniac also asks, he's interested to know if the root triangle of our the offense is the decline. Without knowing them, it's impossible to know for certain, but do you think our scheme is too predictable and that's why our roots are being blanketed these last 5 weeks, or is it just lazy roots? I don't see lazy roots being run at all. It just seems like we're just crossing everything right here within 5 yards.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, 100%.
Throwing all their defenders within 5 yards, and that's
it's obvious. Yeah, it's obvious that the defenders are just sitting on those routes and breaking immediately because they know this bite on the quick route because that's what's coming. That's also why you see a lot of defensive linemen getting their hands up in the air, which we've talked about a lot, because they know the ball's coming out of Ben's hand so fast they're not going to get to him. So get your hand up and just deflect it. So we're seeing that more. We're seeing them break on routes a lot more. We saw a couple of pass breakups against the Bengals that were that way, and obviously the huge hit of Von Bell and Juju was the same way. He took off for Juju because he knew that's 19. What's coming.
Yep. And Matt also asked, at this point.
And hey, by the way, hilarious aside that has been. Oh, my bad. I'm laggy. Go for it.
No, please tell me your hilarious aside.
Okay, it's actually not hilarious at all. Is that even if Juju had not gotten blasted there and fumbled, what was that play call on third down? A 1 yard drag route? I just don't understand. It was nowhere near the first down marker anyway. An atrocious play call that got bailed out in all the talk because of what happened afterwards. But anyway.
And the unfortunate aspect was I think Ebron was running a flag, like a short flag, like a 12-yard flag out on the left side, completely uncovered. So. It's that Ben missed it. Ben was reading Juju, stayed on Juju, threw it to Juju, didn't see the guy coming from the other side, and kablow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Matt also wanted to know, at this point, neither the division nor home field are a big deal, right? Is it time to rest players with any injuries and try to retool the scheme, or do you fight for wins to get faux momentum? And we've already pretty much talked about this. And to me, I actually got blasted by the Steeler writers thread. We text each other back and forth during games, and I'm like, just sit Ben Roethlisberger the last 2 games, and I got blasted for it. And I'm like, look, guys, it's like I'd rather have a healthy Ben Roethlisberger that can win football games than a guy that's like a 60% or 70% Ben Roethlisberger that just doesn't even look like himself right now.
Yeah, man, listen,
We're already in the playoffs.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I would have thought you were completely crazy, but right now that seems kind of reasonable to me. And I'll also propose, this would never happen. This is me being a Madden manager right now. This would never happen. What I would like to see more than anything is maybe let Ben play the first half and let Mason finish the game. Just get Ben some reps, keep him out there, get him, keep the rust off, and then just let Mason finish out the game. If you're that worried about Ben's health, maybe we can do a hybrid approach.
True. Is there any questions on Facebook?
We got from my guy, Matt Quiggins.
Matt!
You're going to like this question, Stryker. I'm going to let you take it away. I've been posting this picture of those popcorn tins. It's not Steelers related at all.
Okay.
Those popcorn tins that have dividers, and it's caramel, cheese, and plain popcorn.
Yes.
Rank those flavors best to worst.
Mine are easy. We used to get these tins back growing up, and it was always like a holiday Christmas thing.
Right.
You always had and I know usually when you're a kid, number one's going to be caramel corn. I couldn't stand caramel corn as a kid.
Nice.
I hated it. I thought it was too chewy. It would it didn't have a good texture. Not until I got into kettle corn. Kettle corn is the only time I ever got to the point where I started enjoying sweetness in a popcorn.
Sure.
But they also balance it well with the salty. So for me, my number one was always the cheddar.
Yes. Thank you.
Cheddar was number one. I've always been a savory guy over sweet. The cheddar was great because it always had that nuanced depth of that cheese flavor to kind of add to the popcorn. The butter would be my second favorite. But the problem was some of the butters were too buttery and would kind of give you that oily headache if you had too much of it. Whereas the ones that are a lighter butter, really fluffy butter, those are great.
Yeah.
But then always I then had caramel corn as a third. So anytime you saw me with the bin, there was no orange, there was no yellow, and there was nothing but brown in there, and I put the top back on. I let somebody else eat that.
I love it. Well, me and you, we are exactly the same on this one, Stryker. So Quiggins, you can suck it, Quiggs. Quiggs was trying to set me up. He was trying to set me up, and it backfired on him. I love it. We also got Dallas asking if we think do you think we are done with Ben as QB for this season? I feel like he's not throwing the ball good at all. He's definitely not throwing the ball good at all, but I think we just talked about this. They're gonna ride him out. Stryker obviously believes that they could sit him these last 2 games, and that would be fine. Just let him get healthy for the playoffs. But the point being, we both believe that come playoff time, it's still Ben's team. That's not changing at all.
Yeah.
Maybe an off-season evaluation. I still feel confident that at the start of the 2021 season, Ben's still a guy. So.
And I stated it at the beginning of the season, this team will go as far as Ben takes it.
Right.
We are Ben's team. Change isn't going to happen really right now. Like, though, I will end at the point where if his Ben is not 100%, and if he has a chance to be 100%, if he sits the next 2 games, I sit him. It's not even a question in my mind. I play Rudolph. I play Dobbs. I play them both, actually. Have Dobbs come in on the field, kind of like they use Taysom Hill down there in New Orleans to kind of just to give teams other things to worry about other than just throwing a football. Like it. We've got to get to this point where we start instituting gadget plays, when we start making the game a little bit more wide open. I mean, here's a nuanced thing that I did notice from last night's game that we haven't done in years, and that is put Ben out on a bootleg.
There you go.
We had 2 of them in the first half, and Ben was no pressure on him all day to throw, and he threw 2 bad balls on those bootlegs, unfortunately. But he was wide open, and I love to see Ben on the edge. That's the old Elway and Ben. Ben loves Elway. It's like I always say, the pocket that creates some timing, can create deeper routes, and you can get deeper guys open downfield. So that's an aspect. So that's one aspect I really did like from last game that I remember. So
love it. Kind of along those same lines, we got one from Joseph here. How can an offense with so many weapons, week in and week out, look like they have no idea where the end zone is? Randy has got to go. I mean, as a if you're any longtime listener to the podcast, I definitely agree Randy's got to go, man. Joseph, I'm right with you, and I've said it all year. Way too much talent on this offense to look the way they have. Even when they were winning, the offense was not playing up to its potential. And I think that's what's funny is like Stryker and I would say it every week is like, there's still another level for this team to reach. There's still another level for this team to reach. They never put it all together. And at this point, I'm not sure if it is Randy, if it's Ben's decline. I don't know. But I think we've analyzed enough at this point to know that Randy is not helping at all.
And I think we mentioned it last week too. I was hoping for a full week to get a real offensive game plan, and they did put in some wrinkles with those boots. They brought back the jet sweep, which got wrecked by Claypool come across on the one jet. But I was expecting more pre-snap motion. And we did in the beginning of the year, and we really didn't get back to a lot of pre-snap motion in this game. We did a couple, but nothing that to me, that's how you get your playmakers in positions to be open to make plays, is you got to move them. Because if they're lining up and they're beating you one-on-one, the way to get around that is moving them around. And the only issue right now is just not having time to get players open currently, so that motion offense would help out. And that's why I was hoping that Tomlin would be like, hey, Matt Canada, let's utilize what you have to – we want to know what you have to think for this game plan. And just see if he can put together a game plan for one game that maybe it's better than what Randy's been doing all season long.
Right.
I mean, at this point, you got to try it, because whereas other teams at this point in the season might have fired their offensive coordinator, it's not what the Steelers do. But the transitional approach to firing the offensive coordinator would be, let's give his duties to this other guy who might be the offensive coordinator next year, because Randy is in his last season of his contract.
There you go. Yep. So I think we agree there, and that does wrap up the Facebook questions.
All righty. Well, thank you, Steeler Nation. Thank you so much for the great questions. We didn't get anything on Twitter today, unfortunately. Twitter's been a little quiet, but we love you on Twitter as well. Thanks for joining us on the live feed. Hunter, I'm at least in a better mood right now after talking with you for an hour than I was before we got on the pod, dreading talking about this football team. So one good thing to say is you always make this more fun, man, and I'm blessed to have you.
Yeah, man, and same to you, dude. I feel like that was therapy to a degree. Like we just vented for an hour about all of our Steelers demons. So Tough game against the Colts, like we said, guys, but hopefully we're coming back, breaking the winning streak. If they beat the Colts, you're going to see the whole fan base, flip instantly, I think. We're going to feel good again. It's going to feel good. They're still in the playoffs. There's still a chance. They'll be fine.
Saying there's a chance.
Positive thoughts, people. Oh, wait, whoa. Real quick, Stryker. Late question.
Oh, question it right before the buzzer.
Right before the buzzer, Bill.
3 seconds left on the clock.
Adam Schefter reported Ben wants to play next year. Any thoughts? I kind of just addressed that. I do think Ben will be the opening day starter 2021.
Yeah.
For sure.
I do.
However, if he continues to decline the way he has in recent weeks, I could see him making an executive decision to retire and just hanging it up because we don't know exactly how he feels right now. So
that's true.
That's not off the table, but I think it's either Ben or Ben retire. Ben's not going to be anybody's backup. Like that's not happening.
No. But, a healthy Big Ben, we were having conversations on whether he should be talked about as an MVP candidate. And we argued that on the show.
Right.
If he's not 100%, I mean, he's dealing with something right now. He's not the same guy, but that's anybody toward the end of careers, that's going to happen. But there's no reason for me to believe that Ben won't come back next year 100% healthy, fired up again, and ready to tear the league a new one like he did for the first 10 games of the season.
Exactly. Yep. There you go. Now we're done with the question. That was a good question. That's why I wanted to make sure we got that one in. I like that question.
Nice. Hey, Steeler Nation, you got to follow our boy, Hunter Homistek, on social media, on Twitter and Instagrams, at Hunter A. Homistek. That's at HunterAHomistek. We will be back 2 o'clock next Tuesday again to go over the Indianapolis game, hopefully in better spirits. Sure. Definitely with a lot of Christmas cheer. Merry Christmas to you and yours and all Steeler Nation. And I look forward to seeing you again here in a week here, Hunter.
Same to you, man. And all the listeners, enjoy your holidays. Go have a nice Homistek style family tradition if you can. Crack open some alcohol and have a good time. You might need it with these Steelers.
I got to talk some beer. I got to talk some beer with you here because I got some great stuff. I did. I picked up the Kentucky bourbon stout or Kentucky. Nice. What KBS? KBS is Kentucky. You know what KBS is.
I know the one. Yeah, the Founders KBS. Yeah.
Founders KBS. They have a peppermint porter out right now.
Ooh.
And two of my styles of beer that I just go insane for, that are just rare styles. One is always like when you put like a hot pepper in a beer, I'm all over it.
Nice. I like that
style of beer. And also mint in a beer.
Okay.
And I've had some great mint beers before. I know Lancaster Brewing does Devil's Bake Sale. That one tastes like a Girl Scout cookie, mint cookie.
Nice.
And this one, the KBS peppermint porter, tastes like a peppermint patty.
That's not a bad thing.
It is a perfect holiday beer. I suggest sticking a candy cane down the bottleneck. And
nice.
You don't even need to. Like you're getting the menthol off the mint. Like it's to me it's like a fantastic mint beer.
That's crazy.
That's my holiday beer right now. Do you have a holiday beer?
Not really, man, honestly, but I am on a big Imperial Stout kick right now. Whenever the weather gets cold, I turn from the IPAs into stout, man. So so that's just been my kick lately.
You and I could do an hour on beer. We could do podcasts on beer, I'm sure.
Hey, there's really no distinction between Steelers and beer at this point for me. They're going hand in hand lately.
Yeah, I ended up drinking a lot last night. But it ended up having to go to Natty Bo's because I just didn't want to keep drinking good beer. And with that
right
going on, so I just wanted to punish myself. So see you soon, man. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you and your family, man.
Same to you and yours, man. Take care, and we'll see you guys next week.
All righty. Steeler fans, Steeler Nation, visit our title sponsor, Total Sports Enterprises, on Twitter to be part of their signed merch giveaways. This one being the Polamalu jersey. Jump on there, retweet it, win that Polamalu jersey right here for Christmas time. So good luck to you guys. And check out their shop, www.tscshop.com, their Twitter @TotalSportsENT. You too can get great, unique gifts for Steeler Nation. It's time, the last minute. You got to shop. Get a great shirt like this one right here, the Steeler Nation 6-pack of Lombardis over at SteelerNation.com on the gear page, on the apparel page. Click and get a great shirt that you can share with your friends and gloat on your 6 Lombardis and have a good time this holiday season with that. SteelerNation.com is the best site for fast, unique Steelers content on the internet. Click the podcast button to listen to one of our many interviews, or click the forum button for the best football discussion on the web. Subscribe to SteelerNation.com YouTube channel which is www.youtube.com/C/SteelerNation to be the first to see our video uploads, and our vidcasts. Tweet us at Steeler Nation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the podcast on Twitter at _SN Podcast and Instagram at Steeler Nation Podcast. And follow your host, Steeler Nation Striker, on Twitter and Instagram at SN Striker. Striker spelled with a Y. Thanks for joining us for the SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, with Hunter Homistek, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!